This episode is brought to you by listeners like you, our intergalactic fuel, and the boost behind this mic. Thanks for supporting our cosmic journey through the universe of sci-fi. Coming up in the podcast, them have like ships in orbit and thing, and so you can see they even have the space plane basically. I forgot a space plane because it does fly in air and also in space. Then there is some kind of unusual energy reading that is coming from the edge of the solar system, right? Answers just moments away.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilization, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captured audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Code Flix.
Greetings, fellow sci-fi and fantasy lovers. Welcome to Code Flix, where we explore the TV shows and movies that shape our imaginations. I'm Andre Bonner, and today's episode, we'll be looking at humanity and how they strike back against the invasion in Independence Day, Resurgence. What happens after the world survives an alien invasion? Do we really learn? Or do we just upgrade our weapons and hope for the best? Independence Day Resurgence picks up in a world shaped by the original alien attack. Humanity has reverse engineered alien technology, building powerful ships, advanced weapons, and a global defense system designed to ensure we're never caught off guard again. Familiar faces return, now carrying even greater responsibility in a world that believes it's finally prepared. With guidance from the mysterious alien sphere that comes to Earth as an ally, this episode of the podcast breaks down the strategies, the mistakes, and the warnings hidden in the story, all to get you ready for what any future alien incursion might look like. These are my personal insights and interpretations of Independence Day Resurgence. So, I have to say right off the bat that this film has not gotten much in the like of good ratings, and it has outperformed other movies in its class or its genre, but this film, what sets it apart is that you have a lead protagonist that performed well in the previous movie, unable to make it for the second movie, and they went ahead with it anyway. So, yeah, they lost out on that big time, right? Which I think definitely Will Smith would have really boosted its ratings and given it a lot more than it has gotten. Anyways, so in the opening scene, we see post 1996 world, right? And this is, you can imagine, they have been they were on the brink of destruction before, right? And now they have been able to, through plum luck, they were able to overcome, right, the whole world, right? And even though it was America that was leading the charge, right, as they usually do in their own films, right? You have to admit, the world came together and they decided that it was best to reverse engineer alien technology and use it, right? Which is a smart move. So may I give them that? And number two, the Earth, basically the whole of the nations, them or the world decided that hey, we're going to all invest heavily in Earth space defense, right? The ESD, that is their name now, right? So instead of the UN National Security Council and whatever, yeah, them have to go stellar. They got to go to space, right? So they have lunar base. Them have a orbital platform, weapons platform. Them have a base on Mars, and I think they have one out on one of Saturn's moon or something like that. Yeah. So you know you can see that things are vastly different from the world that we saw in the ending of the last film, right? They're using alien power, right, to and tech, to power their cities for spacecraft, right? I mean, them have like ships in orbit and thing, and so you can see they even have the space plane basically. I forgot a space plane because it does fly in air and also in space. It them have them marine kind of people, but because there are different military type. But I mean, they have all of that and them have them weapons. Yeah. So one of the things that happened right out in the beginning of the film is just establishing that all of that is happening, and we get to meet some of the characters, right? So we get to meet the guy who obviously doesn't want to be here on the space in the moon defense base. I'd rather be somewhere else, that type of character. And the guy who was like, we are so lucky to be a part of this thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And part of it too is because of what had happened to him prior, because he had some accident or he caused an accident with the son of Captain Hiller. You remember Will Smith's character from the previous film, right? So his son grows up now to be Captain Hiller, right? Major Hiller or something like that. And so apparently he's very popular, right? And this guy who does not want to be there on the moon base now, he is the one that, is like basically dead here for a reason. It's almost like a punishment and put him under, right? So doing normal space activity on the moon stuff, blah, blah, blah. Then there is some kind of unusual energy reading that is coming from the edge of the solar system, right? Now, at this time as well, I should mention the other characters are there, like the president from the last film, but he's not the president anymore because they basically have like a mental breakdown or something, and so he wasn't fit for duty anymore, right? So apparently, it seems like when the harvesters, the aliens, they'd use him to communicate and stuff, like opening a door, they can go into your mind and they basically become a part of the network. So him, one guy within Africa that David go meet, right? That's Jeff Goldblum's character. He goes to meet with this guy out in Africa because them say them did find one big hole where the harvesters were literally digging into the planet, right? Going straight down through the mantle and all of that. So, they were trying to basically piece together the puzzle. Why is it that the aliens are doing this, right? So, of course, there's some other persons who joined the fray. His father is there as well. David's father is there. He's gonna make, some crazy thing in the ending part of the film here. But yeah, let's keep on track here. So they don't really know what is happening there and stuff, and so them dismiss the threat, right? Them say, we think we're good and thing, even though they were being advised by persons that, hey, listen, we don't think this is a good time because they want to have a celebration, right? The next day would be Independence Day, so they want to have that celebration, and they want they want recall him now to go and basically stand up on platform and celebrate. But David is like, yo, something up with this thing. We need to try and figure out what is going on, right? Plus, as I mentioned, you know, them scribbling some markings, the guys them who are connected to the aliens, them scribbling some stuff, some spherical stuff, circular things. So some people don't know what spherical means. Some circular, some diagrams and all sort of something. They might scribble, and they don't know what it is. They weren't even aware that they were scribbling it, right? Because the aliens, I guess, however, they're getting that telepathic link to them. It's almost like static, on the radio. You're hearing some static, but you hear something and you're not sure what it is. So yeah, you kind of, yeah. So of course we get to see President Whitmore, as I mentioned before. I was to say, in basically their mental health facility with him daughter looking after him and a Secret Service agent with them, right? So when him start telling them, say, yo, something is up because, there's some kind of invasion, probably, kind of thing going to happen again, right? But of course, nobody listens to the madman, them, and especially when they have been through it before, right? And then, and thing, they don't listen to people like that. So, Dr. Brackish, you remember that guy, him coming on so many films and TV shows, but he's really good. He was in a coma basically, and him wake up, right? Him wake up, and him partner said to him, say him that need one sweater for him, right? Which I just mentioned because it's not really that important, but I just wanted to just mention that, that whole banter sums up the way how these characters are basically introduced, because we get them kind of in pieces, and I don't think all the pieces match. It's like a puzzle and you're trying to fit them together and they're not quite there yet, right? You don't make out the whole figure of the puzzle. So yeah. So he also seems to be agitated, because of what is going to happen, right? So UFO, right? A spherical ship, this huge, massive ship, come through one wormhole, basically, right? Near the moon. Now, of course, they're like, yo, this look like a threat. This look like the aliens them again, but we are prepared, and a better way get the upper hand rather than we wait for them to attack we and then, which, usually when that happens in movies, it turns out to be totally wrong. So yeah, them attack and destroy the ship, but of course the ship broke apart and there was a smaller spherical object that was inside of some kind of container, and it fell on the moon and thing, and just at that very moment, right? They them go for go look after it. That is David, the guy that I mentioned, the African dude that's Umbutu, I think his name is, and another lady named Catherine who basically was studying the psychology of the whole thing and what they were going through and stuff. So they get a ride from the CM brother when I want up on the moon, and and thing. He operates the space tug, right? And it comes down. I thought that was interesting, the way how it was able to fly from the moon to the earth. You'd think that it would be only able to operate in space in that way, but that's just the way how their technology advanced so much that them can literally just have one vehicle that does everything, right? And stuff. So yeah, the one thing is that it doesn't it's not as fast as like a fighter, one of them fighter jet them what they have. Yeah, so after them defy orders because they weren't given the order to go and collect the thing, right? So they then collect the something, right? And them see big shadow coming from overhead. Where they look is this alien mothership, similar to the harvesters them ship from the previous film, but this one is much more massive, right? And that's films again, right? When the second iteration of something, they always try to up the ante, and so this is the mothership, right? It's one of the literal mothership because you know apparently the aliens that they had, because they had aliens in era 51 that were in containment and in prison, and before the ship came, right, or before anybody realized that the ship had come, them they start make up noise and start, so they knew something was up, but they weren't sure what it was. So yeah, the ship basically, it destroyed the moon base. I don't know how it never cracked the moon, right? Because it could have just cracked the moon just passing it, right? Which is one of the scientific inaccuracies, that I won't really want to go into about it. But hey, yeah, if you're a scientist and you can do the math and tell me if a ship that large, 3,000 miles in diameter, would be able to crack the moon just by flying in its orbit, I just think that's possible. Yeah, but it flies past the moon and it enters the Earth's atmosphere, which is another thing again. Enters the Earth's atmosphere, and literally sits over the Atlantic, causing much of the Earth's planetary defense systems them to go down and damage. Oh, before that, they tried to attack it, of course, because you have to do a preemptive strike, for show force and show them say you have to back off and thing, and it didn't work because the ship has massive shields, and those shields are even more effective than the ones that the aliens came with before. Yeah. So this time around, them never did go walk out of that one there easy. Not at all. So it lands right over the North Atlantic Ocean, and start drill into the Earth's core, right? It do nothing else, That's all it do, right? Not even attack or nothing afterwards, right? Of course, they, you know, the space tug and everything that was on the moon got pulled, with the ship, because the ship had its own gravity, really, you know. And later on in the film, it is seen from the inside, and the inside it would look like a mini moon. That's how massive it is, right? So we'll be right back after these messages. Okay, listen. I don't know who's listening to this, but if you are, first of all, thank you. Truly. This podcast, it's not monetized. No ads, no big alien technology paying the bills, just love, a lot of love, and maybe a little stubbornness. If you enjoy it, really enjoy it, do me a favor. All right? Share it with someone you care about. A friend, a colleague, your barber. I don't judge. And leave a comment. I like comments. They remind me people are still out there. Still talking to each other. Every listen, every follow, every share. It matters more than you think. Because when the world gets loud and things start falling out of the sky, sometimes all we have left is connection. So share the signal. We're all in this together. They end up going to Area 51, meeting up with Dr. Okun, as I tell you before, and and the rest of the persons that are going to be at the forefront of this war, right? Now, Whitmore him reach there and thing that I present Whitmore, Devinson and then thing there. Now, Whitmore him decide say him want to interrogate one of the aliens them. And without telling anyone, he went into the place by himself. Remember, he's a man with sick late, right? And just left everybody and gone. Nobody no see him and sister when he step away. And him go in there and him talk to him go in there for, get the alien. And of course, when them capture you, them wrap them tentacles around your neck and start, use you as a megaphone basically for talk, right? So it basically confirmed their suspicion that, this, are the real mother, because they keep saying she's all, that is the actual line. She's all. So apparently that means say, what I'm saying, this queen, right? This mother, of mothership. Yeah, because when them scan the ship and they realize that there's a alien form that is much massive than the regular alien them. So, these are the real queen bee of the hive. Yeah. So them learn about that and thing, and them realize that boy, them have to try and press on, them have to find some way to take out the queen, take out everything and things. So, them start them counterattack, them try, that a Captain Dylan Hill now, that a Stephen Hiller's son again, him lead the attack and thing, and all of them going there. But apparently the queen of the mothership was expecting them, and it was a ambush. So as soon as they diverted and decided to go inside of that ship, inside of the mothership, they lost control of their system because basically use an EM pulse and knock out everything. So they got cut off from the outside, right? So at this time, everybody, I presume, say all of them were going there, got lost, right? Dead, presumed dead at that moment, right? Now, back at Area 51 now, Okun, who has, been in a bed in a coma with no pants on, him start to, inquire about the spherical object that them find because, thing and thing. And then him partner say, but Missy, you draw something like this, and thing. I was like, really? I don't remember drawing it. And then Cam go show him where him draw. So him say, all right, we need to split this thing open like an egg basically. And thing, we need to get in there and find out what's going on. So man decide to go in and thing and one bag of shenanigans, them find one old laser that he had basically invented, slash created. And it is that him used to basically open the container that has the spherical object in it. Now, once them able to get it out and thing, one of the guys thought it was a great idea to go up close and personal to the sphere, the alien sphere, and touch it with both hands. Fortunately for them, and lucky enough not for him, it activates the sphere, and the sphere recognizing that this is terrestrial DNA, humanoid, then it start to, tell them what its mission is, right? Basically, its mission is to come and find the survivors them and evacuate them to another world, right? Because the warrior basically is being fought in elsewhere basically, and the race that created the sphere basically, they have been wiped out totally, right? But they have evolved, to their consciousness and stuff, and that whole silly billy kind of thing where them use I call it silly billy, but it's kind of cool in a way because it's like them say, yo, them not use them corporal bodies anymore, them their mind and their body is no longer needed, so them go, the mind goes into the cloud essentially, right? It can go anywhere, be anywhere, so yeah. Anyways, the it's telling them that them can basically learn a lot from them and stuff and whatever, but they're like, yo, right now that are the least our problem, because humanity are go, the planet here now go stable after them take over the thing there, so I find a way for get out of that situation. So the pilots them were the then the mothership, and they would have survived. They basically were being hunted by the alien them inside, of the mothership, run them down literally, on a thing there. Some of them, died, but of course, the lead ones would be alive, So that's Dylan, Jake, Charlie, and Rain, right? They're able to get themselves into the harvester fighters them own a fighter ship and navigate it and thing, because it would be similar to the ones that they would have used the last time around. So they kind of learn, I guess that's what they would have learned from, and then they learn to use their ships and all of that. So it made sense, at least at that point now, that hey, them would be able to use the ships so effectively to try to mount a rescue, right? So the queen, she realized that the sphere they're both in, because somebody, because when you activate it and thing in the sphere, it's she basically see it and stuff. So she start come towards it now, right? She with her fair ship man thing and following everything, heading towards Area 51. So then realize say, all right, the best way to do is to do a reverse baiting, right? Because they were baited into going into her ship, and that's how she took them out. Might as well they use that same technique back on her, right? Because she won't be seeing that, right? So they're able to get her to basically follow a red herring, right? They have the isolation chamber being decoyed by President Whitmore again. And that time I say, President Whitmore, really, the character really shines here. He He gave up his life for human race, 2 times, because he effectively lost his life before in terms of, no longer a president, no longer seen, right? And now him did once more, right? But this time, finality, totally, right? Of course, him daughter and him had it out because she's like, yo, you're not getting there. I'm going to do it. And then him get the Secret Service agent to trick her and allow him to go. Now, I believe there's a Service agent, IMCM1, responsible for make him go in the room with the alien earlier on in the film. If he said that, yeah, so they have this whole thing where them say them are go explode some nuclear bombs, but of course to protect the earth, them use one shield generator for generate a shield right around the queen ship and and everything. It didn't work fully, right? Destroyed her ship, but she was totally alive same way, and on a rampage now, because she big, what I'm saying, like gigantic, and start go after them and thing. As I mentioned before, Levinson's father, right? He picked up some kids, right, on the way, right? Or at least the kids picked him up first because he ended up on him boat in the Atlantic at the time, and yeah, him boat get wrecked basically, and the kids them see him and thing, and them pick him up and thing, and them now the parents got them parents they are Florida, and say Florida was in the zone of damage and things, so them wiped out totally. So they basically take him on and thing, and him take care of them up to this point where him carry them to him son David, right? Thinking that he was doing the best thing at the point, but David was in the middle of, trying to get the queen, right? Anyways, that hijinks ended up with them having to basically jump into the school bus, right? Because it's a school bus that they all were riding in. And David ended up behind the wheel of the said school bus. Right. So the queen whether there have a personal shield, so they realized that is why she wasn't damaged in that attack that they tried. And so what they have to know, they have to figure out a way around those shields. Lucky enough is that the queen has to lower her shield to fire her own weapon, which makes sense, right? But she does get a critical hit, right? And Whitmore's daughter is able to deactivate her shield, right? And then this allow now Dylan, the gang, the fighters, them, to come in and finish her basically, right? And this is just before she's able to, cause she grabbed the spear, right? She reach at Area 51, dig out the spear from where they might hide it in the location, and was, on her way to either destroy it or whatever she was gonna do. And right before she's able to do that, them take her out, right? And of course, like how they had postulated before, in theory, they thought that once the queen is taken out, the hive mind no longer operates, everything stops. So the alien fighters inactive, the drilling stop, yeah. So after this now, Dr. Okun now him come and him say, the sphere say we can actually get to learn some of their technology, right? We can get more advanced in our thing, and we can actually take the fight to them. That's the harvester world. So, this obviously was just basically a setup basically for Independence Day 3, right? And at this moment, there isn't any plans, I think, on the table for one, right? So who knows? Maybe they do a reboot and they probably do a half decent job, you know, because Independence Day was incredible, and Independence Day 2 Resurgence, it was trying to ride the coattails of 2, and it's not that it's a horrible film, right? It still has its moments, like the little comedies, and the little action stuff in there. But what you know, what I think matters as a fan is to be able to watch a film and feel like it connects with you, especially if you have this great backstory, and then you have to be basically like wonder which pieces are being used, and how certain characters are, because I'm not gonna say that it couldn't have been a great film without Will Smith, but it would have been great to have him at least cameo for a while. Make we even see that very scene where they because the idea is that he was in a test flight for something, right? And he died because of that. So it would have been cool to it would have been not nice to feel emotionally, but it would have given the film a little bit more of an emotional weight, you know? Yeah. I hope it is understood. So it's not terrible, as I said before. It just lacks those are the small little things that could make it much more enjoyable and much more rich. And if as I mentioned, the characters being introduced, new characters are okay, but you can't force them in and at the 11th hour expect me to believe that Dylan and Jake basically just put their feuding aside all of a sudden, right? I know, yes, the world is at stake and thing, but I still have a little bit of feelings that, yo, me not right that brother Yannick, I'm dangerous. I don't trust you. You know what I'm saying? Me not trust you. Me not care who it is, right? Me not care what situation with it, right? So, yeah, those little things are what I think could have made it a little better. Yeah. So that is my analysis and interpretations. Here are some theories about some unresolved mysteries and a few plot points. So there is a scene where one of the characters is on a teleconferencing, right? Them on one of them software, like at that time, or something like a teleconferencing thing. It's have satellite capabilities and thing. But I'm thinking about the fact say they got disconnected, and there is an automated voice that basically tell them say the person you're trying to reach is unavailable. That kind of thing is like what is going on here? Like you guys are so advanced and yet still you're using something like that. You expect to have some kind of reconnect now or try again later, something. Many films do it like, hey, it's the end of everything. Like, okay, I can't connect. That's it, man. I just give up. I was like, seriously. Oh, let me just retry. It now work. All right, fine. It does not work. Something must be wrong. XYZ. And I'm like seriously. So, as I mentioned before, the humans were able to hypothesize and, about the hive mind because, I'm saying, all right, the queen here look are this creature, right? Because when I say, hey, so this creature looks larger than all of the other aliens, right? She must be the queen. Yeah, that makes sense, like the queen bee. So it would make sense if they operate in a hive mind, if there's like a network between them, right? Some kind of psychic network. Then if you take out the control node, everything gone, everything down. Sorry, I'm being very technical, but yeah, if you basically just plug out the thing, you take out the power source, it done for right. So to me, it's a reasonable assumption to make. However, you don't know what effects it would have because when you plug out your computer, right, or at least when you disconnect a device, you power it off. It just seems like it does power off and it stopped doing what it was doing before. In some cases, if you have a blender that is spinning and you just plug it out and thing, it can have the effect of mashing up the thing, you know what I'm saying? And cause it to do something erratic that you didn't expect it would do, right? So, these are some good things that not to nitpick, but you wonder, if there could have been a little bit more in terms of exposition there to say, hey, this is why we know this is the case and why we think we can trust it, not just but us think and us and I eat that. No. Yeah. So the ESD, they hide the sphere, right, from the queen. Them use a bait and switch basically, because them know so she come into the location because it already give off the location, right? And so they put it in an isolation room basically, and then them put a decoy basically, signal similar matching frequency and blah blah onto a moving object, a vehicle, and pilot it somewhere to thing there. Now, how were they assured that she would not continue to come to that particular location where she just saw it was? Check there first before moving on, because if she's able to track it in real time, that means wherever it goes, she will know, even if it is 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So she could deploy, as yes, she is controlling the hive mind. She could have deployed, some of her drones, right, to go, go and go look on it over there, so and you confirm if that is what I'm seeing, because all of a sudden, me see it the devices and then it start move. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Them little thing there can make or break a thing. Okay, so you have to confront the MacGuffin, right? Yeah. That MacGuffin of the queen being able to survive the attack because she have a personal shield. So shield inside a shield and thing. And you wonder that the way how these things are made, what kind of effect they would have, right? Because I'm assuming, right, the shields are operating like a deflector, right, and not necessarily something that would just slow it down and stop the impact, right? So if it is deflecting, then it would have a reverberating thing. So they must have something like some shield dampener kind of thing happening, right? Yeah, and I kind of talk more sci-fi. So I'm sorry if you are not, already initiated to those conversations, but that was something that was kind of iffy to me. Like, what, how that makes sense, right? All right. So with the dead queen, the drilling stops, right? And all of the harvesters, them, again, this is another thing now. So based on what I mentioned about the hive mind, right? Yes, you do disconnect, right? The hive mind. Why would it just stop? Right there, just stop. It have 1 minute to go, but it was spinning, right? The drill was literally spinning, making its way down, as well as, you have the harvesters in the air. They're flying around. What kind of damage them gonna cause? You just, them just, stop her right in our tracks. So basically, you just have this situation where it just done this. So yeah. So as I mentioned before, there are definitely some unresolved ideas and some things that set up the sequel, right? In a great way, you know, the scope of the Harvester Empire, right? Because we get some details, say the home world, them can get to that location, them can get to be able to travel there and stuff. So, and the film kind of tease at that whole thing of, this ongoing conflict, that this other species is able to war them, fight against them and stuff and thing. Now, the sphere has this kind of purpose, which is to give hope to humanity that even though, they weren't able to defend themselves against this attack, right? And even though we know that there are other ships out there as massive as this one, and and thing, that they would be able to at least stand against them another time, right? But we don't really get the scope of, the type of species. Were they bipedal? Were they, quadrupedal? And were they anything like even the harvesters? Could they be a faction of the harvesters, right? I've watched several TV shows and movies, and I'm telling you, sometimes it's not a great thing when another alien species enters a war between, a lower species and a higher species like that, because you don't know if they are using the species for something, right? And what their motives are. Yes, they might be benevolent, but they could also be very, very much malicious. They might just be using human race or intend to use the human race for their own means. So leaving some of those things open, has a world of different things that could happen, right? If they were to decide to do a sequel and thing, right? Or a part three, right? And possibly four, because I could see it going over two movies more if they can properly write compelling stories, and engaging ones that at least explore more character and all of these things. But yes, especially with these younger versions, right, of the previous characters. But then lastly, Earth's political and social response, right? Because they now have the opportunity, because we know as human beings, not all of us are altruistic. Some of us are going to use this for gaining power, to be able to go to other worlds to conquest, right? Under the guise of freedom or democracy. You know what I'm looking at right now. I don't even have to say it. Yeah. So, yeah, man. Hopefully, this is the last time I have to say it, But yeah, it could be a case where, on the flip side, we could turn around exterminating a species of people who might not be the problem, right? Because as we know as human beings, not all of us are horrible, right? Human beings, and we have problems with, them. And when we have problems with them, we put them away, right? We put them in, prisons, right? Because them can't stay out here with the rest of us and keep themselves quiet, So, it's one of those things, and it's something that uh, I have even spoken about before in talking about space above and beyond. Something like that comes up. Warring with another species, human race is not necessarily the best at staying completely neutral, right? Because if them see a up a uncertain way or them see a way them can get something and them have power, they're gonna take it. So maybe not the best ones to get it. Yeah. Anyways, share your favorite moments or theories. Drop them in the comments. In this episode, we looked at Independence Day, Resurgence. Humanity have to learn to recognize the signs. And when I'm talking about signs now, I'm not talking about, the vague, ethereal kind of thing. But history has shown us that we have a propensity to expand our territory around us. We didn't stay in the cradle of civilization. We took our time and we pushed out in all directions. Not all at once, but eventually. And for some people, it seems like they haven't gotten out of that stage of wanting to go and conquer. And these are the type of people you have to be very mindful of, because when they are given the power, they somehow become blinded by it and make certain decisions that you oftentimes wonder if they were even thinking at all. So Independence Day, the aliens came and they immediately tried to take them out without having any understanding of the type of enemy that they faced. They even treated an ally like an enemy. And that could have gone horribly wrong. Lucky enough it didn't. But it could have gone far worse. They could have made an enemy from an ally that they could have definitely used. That's why sometimes, I think about it in terms of, if we were to get an alien invasion tomorrow, or better still, if aliens, benevolent they are, come and visit, what would be different? What would change? What would humanity do? Would we be the best of ourselves? Or would we try to take those aliens, take their highly advanced technical capabilities into our hands and use it for our own gain? So whether you like it or not, humanity, even in the film, showed that they could use alien technology. And I'm sure they didn't just figure out everything themselves. I'm sure there were countless experiments that they did on those harvesters and aliens that they had at Area 51. Now, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but if such a place exists and such things are happening, this would definitely be a good reason for their mother, the queen, or some other entity that wants to step in, come and step in. Yeah. And sure, I'm not talking about the movies anymore, but I know you will get the analogy, and hopefully history will tell whether this podcast still exists. That is, you know, maybe just talking to the void, but at least in some form, I hope the message will get through. And there you have it, another thrilling chapter in our voyage to the universe of sci-fi television. The path ahead leads to 2,000 downloads, and every bit of engagement brings us closer. Follow, comment, and share your thoughts. Until we meet again, keep exploring the unknown. This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.